I came to DC years and years ago with this thought that I was going to change the world. I hope that's why most people come to Washington, DC. I like capitalism. I actually believe in it. I think that, we were a country founded as a capitalist country before we were founded as a republic. And I like to defend that.
What's one thing you love about your job?
I get a high off of politics. Politics is a contact sport. You need to make contact to make it work. I wake up, I read pretty much nonstop from the second I'm awake. New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. I'm a big Premier League soccer guy, so I read The Athletic, whatever's happening with Liverpool. Very few business owners ever want to write a law. They usually want a law not to be written.
How can we learn from the leaders, educators, and experts in our industry? What can we take away from their successes and failures? How can we apply this to our businesses, our careers, and our lives? This is what we are here to find out. I'm your host, Karthik Chidambaram, CEO of DC Cap. We make systems, talk to each other for manufacturers and distributors. I love to learn and share that knowledge with others. This podcast is about having meaningful conversations that we can all learn from. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. We are here in Washington, DC, joined by a very special guest, Brian Wild, Chief Government Relations Officer at NAW. Brian, thank you so much for joining me today, and great to have you on the show.
Awesome. Well, welcome to DC.
Yeah, DC is cold, Brian.
It is. It is, especially the last 2 weeks. It's been really cold.
Yeah, it's always cold, yeah. But Brian, thank you for your time. Great to be chatting today. Chief Government Relations Officer, what exactly is your role at NAW and how do you help distributors?
Sure. So one, my role is I'm basically the lobbyist for the National Association of Wholesaler-Distributors in our member organizations. And under that apparatus, we have a political program. So I run the political program, which is separate from lobbying. And then we have a legal program, which is also separate. And what we do is wholesale distributors are busy trying to make money and run their business, and they don't really have time or want to follow what's going on in DC, let alone weigh in on new regulations, new laws, on that sort of thing. So that's what we do. So our entire department is full of former Hill staffers and former regulators. And we track what's going on, what issues matter, regularly update the members on those issues, and then weigh in as legislators write law and make policy to make sure that they're not negatively impacting the industry.
So let's say I'm a distributor in Wisconsin and I run into
Great state to be a distributor from, by the way.
Let's say I run into some issues there, okay, in terms of some labor laws or something like that, right? Do I reach out to NAW? Is that how it works? Or when does a distributor really contact you?
One, we mostly do federal issues. So we're mostly dealing with Washington, D.C. and things that are going nationwide. We do have a state program that's really monitoring what's happening in Wisconsin. Specifically, my hope is that I'm reaching out to you first and making you aware, hey, this is happening. I think this might have an impact on you, rather than you telling me, because that probably means I'm not doing my job as well as I would like to. But when members do reach out, I say a lot, politics is a contact sport. You need to make contact to make it work. And so one, you'd flag the issue to us in that case, and we do a deep dive. I have a team of experts on specific issues. If I don't have the answer, they do on what the impact would be. And let's say it's going to be a major deal. If it's impacting your company, it's going to impact a lot of other companies. We'll write issue briefs and get everybody up to speed. And then we'll weigh in with the legislators themselves. Say, hey, I don't know if you intend to be doing this, but what you're going to do is going to increase costs for the supply chain. It might cost jobs. It's going to make it a less business environment. And we try to change things from there. It's about knowing the issues. And then it's about relationships.
So can you give me an example of something where a problem you solve for distributors, like a policy decision you helped drive?
Sure. A lot of problems we've been on lately, it's defense, right? So we're hoping to stop bad things from happening. There's very little proactive stuff out there. Very few business owners ever want to write a law. They usually want a law not to be written. And so we spend a lot more time making sure that things don't harm them than we are being proactive. Recently, President Biden, his Department of Labor, and OSHA issued an overtime rule, changing the framework for who gets paid overtime, what the various salary thresholds for that overtime. So we weighed in at the Department of Labor and explained to them, this is a major deal, especially in our industry, because We have inside sales folks. We have outside sales folks. We have a whole diverse spectrum of people that all get treated different underneath that overtime rule, and tried to change what those salary thresholds were, what those hour thresholds were. We lost. The Department of Labor said, yeah, you made a lot of good points, but we don't really care. We're going to go ahead and do what we want to do. And they pushed that forward. So we did the next step. We sued them. And we actually took Department of Labor to court. We sued him in Texas in the 6th District Court there. And the court ruled in our favor and said that in this instant, the Department of Labor had overstepped their constitutional authority, that they didn't have the right to make those salary thresholds that they had done and the way that they had done it. So they struck the rule completely. That whole process sounds, I just explained it, and I don't know how long that took. That was about a 2-year process. And it's time, it's energy, and it's labor, right? And you have a team of people. There's a lot of really good lawyers that are involved in that. There's a lot of good policy people that are involved in that. And there's a lot of good communicators that are involved in that.
So yeah, as a distributor, I don't have to spend time there. I just leave it to NAW and you represent on the distributor's behalf.
Absolutely.
So when these policies or laws are written, are they for a specific industry or is that on a whole? How does that work? I'm just trying to understand.
Very complex question. So typically, no, most laws are not written industry specific. So it impacts, let's say you have a greenhouse gas emission standard, or you're doing electric trucks. They're not targeting us, but they're definitely impacting us. They're also impacting the 3PL carriers and UPS and a whole bunch of folks that we don't consider distributors. In that case, we form coalitions, and NAW's kind of bread and butter. We are the center of a lot of coalitions. So not only are we representing the wholesaler-distributors, but we're banding together with other industries, the American Trucking Association or the National Retail Federation, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, to create a coalition to fight an issue or to support an issue. There is issue-specific legislation coming down the pike that definitely impacts wholesaler distributors. It's the first time that I've seen it. I've been in DC for longer than I cared. When I showed up, I had a full head of hair. Let's say that. I've been here over 30 years, and very rarely do you see specific legislation that only hits one industry. There is a bill out there that's actually called the Warehouse Worker Protection Act, and it goes through NAICS codes, which is how Department of Labor and Department of Commerce divide up business industries, and it only impacts NAICS codes that are wholesaler distributors. So it doesn't matter whether you're a distributor of beer or wine or pharmaceuticals or HVAC equipment or fasteners, you're listed specifically in the bill, and it would target us. It's interesting. I think it's a pushback against, frankly, Amazon and Walmart and some of the bigger players in the retail space. Unions are really active there. They want to start to unionize those warehouses. And legislators at the state level and the federal level have introduced legislation that puts different restrictions. It restricts surveillance, automation, technology in a warehouse workspace. It implements an ergonomics rule for warehouse workers, whether worker A or worker B is more efficient. So if worker A puts 10 apples in a bucket and worker B puts 15 apples in a bucket, I can't give worker B a raise based on that performance. It limits all of that. On top of that, it creates a whole new department in the Department of Labor that would have nothing but oversight over warehouse and distribution workers. It gives power to the Federal Trade Commission to oversee any merger and acquisition that happens in the warehouse space. This is a big bill for us. We're definitely fighting it, pushing back hard on it, but there is targeted legislation for the first time that's hitting us, and hopefully we're going to stop it before it goes too far.
So, hey, make sure you run your business well, treat your employees well, and that takes care of most of the things. So is that what you would advise distributors as well? So that, we don't really have to ruffle feathers.
I think that's exactly right. I think, the distributors that I talk to, and I've met with an awful lot of them, almost every single one of them starts the conversation about how great their company culture is. And they all talk about the fact that they have employees that started as a forklift operator and now are branch manager, or started as I know some that started off as a secretary back when we still called them secretaries and are now CEOs. And that culture of investing in your workers, training your workers, promoting your workers, and trying to get your workers to stay and be happy, treating them well. And so I think as long as we're doing that, I think most of our member companies are in that space. I think we're going to be fine. The problem is in the process of trying to get some folks that don't do that treat their workers more as temporary employees than as part of a team, they hit us. And there's not a way to legislatively target a company, but there is a way to legislatively target an industry. And so we're kind of fighting other people's battles right now.
You talked about being proactive, and as you know, proactive policies really help a lot. It also helps drive an industry. So what is NAW doing, in terms of some proactive measures, which maybe we are not even talking about right now, but then let's say if it's done, it might help distributors in a big way.
So I think distribution especially is rabid defenders of free enterprise. They really believe in capitalism, believe in entrepreneurship. The proactive part is going in and trying to strip away some of those burdensome regulations, or like in the tax code, freeing up resources that they could use to invest back into their company. One of the interesting things about distribution, I think, is there's a lot of third generation, fourth generation companies. There's a lot of family run businesses, some of them in the billions of dollars, but they still really operate like they're a family run business. And so things like the estate tax of what happens when you pass down your property or your business, those kind of issues, I think we're trying to get ahead of, so that that's part of the puzzle that distributors don't have to worry about. And so it's a pretty broad agenda to just say proactive. I think in the labor front, there's a bunch of things that we're trying to peel back some layers of regulation that have happened. And then I think one of the other issues is right now, California, especially, to name names, California is a nation unto itself, and they're making rules and regulations. We would love to get to a scenario where they don't have that kind of power, that there's a federal rule on environment, there's a federal rule on transportation and trade and trucking and that stuff. So the businesses are a little freer to cross borders and expand, and we don't have California telling them what to do.
Totally. What is LPC? Is that a new program you guys started?
It is. And thanks for getting it right. LPC is our Legal Policy Center. I already highlighted one of the things that it did, which is challenge the Department of Labor and the overtime rule. This is a modernization of advocacy. Most people kind of know what a lobbyist is. They think of walking the halls of Congress and shaking hands with members of Congress, and maybe even smoking a cigar and drinking a martini, which doesn't actually happen, and talking policy. What's happened is Congress has stopped making a lot of law. So historically, Congress usually sends about 400 bills to the president's desk to be signed, and the last Congress sent about 40. So when Congress doesn't make law, policy goes somewhere else to be made, and that policy is increasingly made in the executive branch. So that's why I keep talking about regulations. That's why I keep talking about us fighting the Department of Labor or whatever, because they really have been empowered because Congress isn't doing their job. And the only way to fight that is to be part of the comment period and to push that forward. And then when you're not, to sue them and to really ask the courts, third branch of government, to weigh in and say, do they actually have the authority to do it? And so the Legal Policy Center is that aspect of it. We've just built that off to kind of pick up the slack that Congress has dropped. And so we're pushing forward a whole host of cases. We weighed in on the FTC's non-compete clause, won that. We weighed in on DOL's overtime rule. We won that. There was recently a Supreme Court case against a food distributor. So EMD Sales is a food distribution company, and it was over the definition of outside sales. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and our Legal Policy Center weighed in on that and really was asked by the Supreme Court to explain what outside sales people are. There's no reason a Supreme Court justice should even understand what that is. And so, really, we had our lawyers on the phone with distribution members who would sit there and say, hey, this is how we use outside sales. This is how we use inside sales. This is why they're different. They then turn around, explain that to the Supreme Court. In the end, we got a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court just a couple of weeks ago that we don't have to change anything we do. So I think the Legal Policy Center is I'm super excited about it because to me it's fun and new, but it's getting really permanent victories in places where we can.
Who pays for all these expenses, Brian?
Well, you do. Hopefully your podcast subscribers do. It's a combination as flush in cash as a lot of trade associations are. Some of it is membership dues go towards government relations and help us with the Legal Policy Center. But on top of that, we try to leverage as much money as we can. You has an incredible reputation here in Washington, D.C. Over 40-something years of being an honest broker on policy issues has given us a lot of bandwidth and trust, and people want to partner with us. So a lot of what we've done on the Legal Policy Center is we've leveraged that, and we find lawyers, great constitutional scholars. They want to prove a point. I mean, these are people that care. And so they take on our case for either free or for a discounted rate because they want to try a case in front of the Supreme Court. Who doesn't want to do that? And then we ask our members to give more. So We have a handful of companies that have really felt the challenge and understand the startup costs, and lawyers are more expensive than lobbyists, and helped advance fund some of those things. So we're asking for members to contribute. We're asking for partners to contribute, and it's been welcomed, I think, pretty well. For a year in, I think we're on pretty good footing.
And what's one thing you love about your job, and what's one thing you hate?
I actually I get a high off of politics. And politics, maybe I get a high off of policy. I came to DC years and years ago with this thought that I was going to change the world. I hope that's why most people come to Washington, DC. I still have that feeling so many years later. Like I wake up and I think I could change the world today. I like that. I like the issue set is always changing. I mean, right now, the difference between Washington, DC today and 4 weeks ago is really dramatic. And I like that. I kind of like the chaos that government relations has. And I think for NAW in particular, it's important. Everybody has a different reason why they care about politics. Some people, it's social issues. Some people, it's a cause, a care. It's a specific thing. Maybe it's cancer research or whatever. The thing that drove me way back when I first started getting interested, I like capitalism. I actually believe in it. I think that, we were a country founded as a capitalist country before we were founded as a republic. And I like to defend that. So I found a great niche at NAW that they push all of the issues that I like the most. I get to work on what I want to work on. It's the old, what color is my parachute thing? And I found the right color. What I don't like about it, the thing that I don't like is just the amount of nonsense that sometimes I have to put up. And it's not from our members. It's the problem with politics. I wish every conversation in politics could be productive and interested, and two people at a table both trying to achieve something. For every one of those productive conversations that I have, I spend 9 that are completely non-productive. And I think that's changed over time too. I'll be the jaded DC inside the Beltway swamp dweller here, but it used to be a lot. I think everybody was here trying to be productive, and you could disagree with each other openly and honestly and still move on and solve other problems. That percentage of people that are there for productive reasons has declined. It's harder and harder to find those conversations.
I would like to end with this question. What book are you reading right now? Or is there something you're listening to which you'd like to share with our audience?
I am currently reading How Green Is My Valley. Is the book I'm currently reading. It's an old book. It takes about coal mining in Wales, way back when, fiction. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I do nonfiction for a job. And so I like to do fiction, and I especially love well-written books and older authors. So I kind of dwell on that. It's escapist to me to read literature. And then what was the second part of your question?
A podcast you listen to, or somebody you follow? Or who do you follow? Maybe that's a question I'll ask you.
Well, I have 4 children. So I listen to whatever they tell me to listen to. I don't podcast. Here it is. I'm a voracious reader. I read a lot. I subscribe to probably 4 newspapers that I read diligently every day, and probably another 6 newsletters that I read every day. And I read them all for different purposes. I will say I like The Economist a lot. I like how the Brits write about it from the outside. I think a lot of times they're wrong, but I always find it a little interesting. And then here, there's actually a newsletter in DC called Semaphore, which I really like. Of all of the daily political rags that we do, I think they do a really great job. It's insightful. It's not just reporting. It's a insightfulness that you get from it. So those are probably my 2 go-tos.
Do you follow a schedule with respect to reading, or you just read whenever you find time, or how does that work?
Both. How's that? So one, I do have a schedule. I wake up, I read pretty much nonstop from the second I'm awake. I try to go through all of the dailies that I can, the Times, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. I do the front page, back page, opinion page. I read the Denver Post sport pages because the Denver Broncos are the greatest team. I'm a big Premier League soccer guy, so I read The Athletic on whatever's happening with Liverpool. And then I dive into the political stuff on the newsletter. So I kind of have a routine that I try to get to until it gets blown up by whatever chaos and crisis exists. I save my long reads, my Atlantic and my Economist and stuff. I save those for the weekends. And, it's me and my dog while my children are still sleeping, because they're old enough now that I wake up before they do. And I watch soccer and I read those.
So Brian, thank you so much for joining me on this driven conversation. I enjoyed chatting with you, and thanks for helping us learn on government relations at NAW. Thank you for joining our Driven by DC Cap podcast. Your support means a lot to us. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button and subscribe. Consider leaving us a review. Thank you for joining us.